Disney's sequel trilogy concluded almost 7 years ago. Yeah, the passage of time sucks, I know. Ever since then, while a bunch of TV shows have dropped, we haven't gotten a single Star Wars movie in theaters, with The Mandalorian and Grogu breaking their almost decade-long hiatus from the big screen. This has given fans ample time to reflect back on the trilogy, as well as other Disney Star Wars films. Maybe they weren't as bad as you remember. Well, Rogue One is amazing, and Andor only made it better, but for the sequel trilogy, this break in time didn't help its perception. In fact, it probably made things worse because the sequel trilogy for Star Wars is notorious for doing a ton wrong. You could pick holes in characters, plot threads, or themes with absolute ease. Popular complaints are how Finn's character was fumbled in pretty much every single way. The best pilot in the galaxy might as well not have even been in the story.
You're demoted.
Kylo Ren was wasted potential through and through. They fly now, and somehow Palpatine returned. Some would argue the films didn't even do a single thing right. One of the biggest points for debate and mistakes made in Disney's Star Wars is Rey, a character that showed extreme promise in The Force Awakens, but nowadays is among some of the most hated characters in the entire franchise. There's been a sequel trilogy for her that was announced years ago and has been in production hell with no signs of escaping it. How did this happen? What made fans turn their heads and shun Rey as a character? While there are many potential answers for this, I think one scene in particular completely ruined Rey's character.
You have his power. You're his granddaughter. You are a Palpatine.
Of course, many were quick to ask, who would have a child with the Emperor? But there are actually a few more important layers to why this reveal just fundamentally does not work. In The Force Awakens, Rey is hinted several times to potentially be related to someone important in the universe. She tells the droid her identity is a secret. Her parents are a huge mystery because she was just dumped by them on Jakku. And out the gate, she has an incredibly strong connection to the Force, defeating Kylo Ren despite him having trained for presumably decades by that point. With some of the threads it was creating, at the time, many fans speculated that Rey must have been a secret child of either Luke or Leia and left on Jakku for one reason or another. This wouldn't have made sense for their characters, but it's what many fans believed regardless. People were eager to find out who she was, and this answer ended up coming in the very next movie, The Last Jedi, which quickly became a controversial entry to the franchise and where many people's faith began to wane in the Disney trilogy. The entire point of the film seemed to be to subvert as many expectations as possible. Supreme Leader Snoke? No, we're not going to tell you anything about him, he's dead now. Captain Phasma? She's not important either. In fact, we're going to kill her too. And the biggest point of contention was the handling of Luke Skywalker. While many of the writing decisions may not have worked for everyone, it did do something so astronomically interesting with Rey.
Do you want to know the truth about your parents?
They were nobody.
They were filthy junk traders who sold you off for drinking money.
Despite how heavily they seemed to go in on Rey being related to someone in the universe, she was no one. Her parents didn't care about her, and they basically left her to potentially die on Jakku, just in exchange for some quick cash. It is about the lowest of lows for a parent. Shockingly, this disappointed some people that Rey wasn't related to Luke or Leia somehow, but I thought this was an extremely interesting decision for her story, especially so when compared to the previous main characters of each trilogy. Anakin Skywalker was someone who was literally born as a manifestation of the Force, and he was the chosen one. Luke Skywalker was the son of one of the strongest Force users in history, and was a key part in fulfilling the Jedi prophecy to destroy the Sith and bring balance to the Force. Despite them both coming from simple origins on a desert planet, they were destined from greatness because of their lineage, and were characters a part of the very common Chosen One trope. Rey, of course, started off the same way. She was raised on a desert planet and seemed to possess great powers in the Force. Many suspected that she must have had some hidden lineage or special connection to the Force, similar to Anakin and Luke. That's why this reveal, that she was just no one the entire time, is so powerful. In fact, Daisy Ridley, who portrays Rey, has confirmed in interviews that Rey was planned in The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi to be a nobody. She would have no connection to previous families or characters in the Star Wars universe. It's the first time in Star Wars that it shows its audience that a hero doesn't need to be a part of any special lineage. Yes, The Skywalkers have a very strong connection to the Force, but this could also happen to anybody. You don't need to be born the chosen one. No matter where they come from or how they were raised, anyone has the power to change the galaxy. This message was heightened by the ending of The Last Jedi, where it showed a group of children looking up to the stars. Maybe they too could change the future one day. It is a great message to present, especially to children, because in our current time, chasing your dreams and being who you want to be seems to be less and less pushed by the general public onto the new generations. Gen Z and even the inklings of the more grown-up Gen Alpha crowd are reaching their teenage years and are incredibly sad, depressed, and lonely. They need some hope. This message of Rey being a nobody while still doing something amazing gives everyone an incentive to dream on, something that is necessary for all of us. A lot of ideas or things were knocked down by the attempt to subvert expectations in The Last Jedi, but they did set up a final movie to potentially home run how Rey could embrace her own individuality. However, The Last Jedi was received very mixed by critics and general audiences. So to put a band-aid on things and hopefully make fans happy again, Disney brought back J.J. Abrams, who directed The Force Awakens, to finish off the trilogy with The Rise of Skywalker. I'm sure I don't need to say this. You all probably know how this movie went down. The Rise of Skywalker feels as if it was written by someone from Wattpad, which, no offense to my Wattpad writers, I'm sure you could probably write a fanfiction that is a million times better than this movie, which, speaking of, there are a million problems in this film that bring down the sequel trilogy and honestly the rest of the franchise. Bringing back Palpatine was incredibly stupid and retroactively makes Vader's sacrifice mean nothing. Turns out he wasn't the chosen one. Who cares if he was born by the Force? Who cares if he was supposed to bring balance to the Force? None of that matters. Palpatine's alive still. The biggest mistake this movie made, in my opinion, was trying to immediately retcon who Rey was. The Force Awakens hinted that she could be somebody, but it was a gotcha moment, set up to reveal that she was just Rey, and she was strong for it. But immediately, they retcon her being nobody to being a Palpatine? By having Rey now be related to Palpatine, she suddenly was a part of a legendary lineage that explained her connection to the Force and completely ruins the message presented in The Last Jedi. No longer can anybody change the galaxy. A hero cannot just come from anywhere. The Rise of Skywalker teaches us that nepotism is all that matters in life, which is horrible for a message. With Rey being a Palpatine and Kylo being related to the Skywalkers and the Solos, everyone in Star Wars that played any relatively important pivotal role to shape the universe and the Force was related to three families. If you were in any other lineage, well, you might have helped in the fight for the Resistance, or you could have made things worse for those opposing the First Order. You plainly did not matter in this world, and that goes for Finn and for Poe as well. This message gets even more soiled as, at the end of the film, Rey of course uttered yet another parody to hell and back line.
Who are you?
Oh god. No! No!
Rey Skywalker.
This is when they just completely ruin any ounce of individuality that Rey had left. She wasn't just Rey, she was now a Palpatine turned into a Skywalker. Despite the interesting direction that was taken with her, Lucasfilms and Disney were too afraid to have Rey be a nobody. It is their mistakes with Rey that makes Blade Runner 2049 an even more fascinating movie, which was released the same year as The Last Jedi. The film follows Officer K, a Blade Runner who, despite being great at his job, clearly feels as if he lacks purpose. K is a replicant, meaning that he is a bioengineered human being, and his job as a Blade Runner is to kill other replicants. He struggles to smile, he seems to have no friends, and his isolation leads him to purchase an AI girlfriend named Joy. She loves him, at least he is pretty sure she does, especially since she gave him a pet name, which is Joe. Outside of Joe, he's never had a real name, just a manufacturing serial number. K does have some memories, but they were implanted in him, as they are with every replicant. There is nothing important about him, and from the get-go, he is a nobody. During one of his missions, his entire life changes when he discovers bones of a child that was produced by a human and a replicant, something that should be impossible given replicants cannot reproduce. After its discovery, K is assigned to track down and kill the replicant so that society can't find out that a replicant had a baby. Through his mission, he discovers the memories that were planted in him aren't fabricated. Just to double check they're real, he goes to visit Anna Stelline, the person who makes memories for replicants, where he learns that they are definitely real. Because of this, all signs point to Kay being the missing replicant-born child.
I know it's real.
In a life that he thought was meaningless and where he was a nobody, he turned out to be one of the most important things in the universe of Blade Runner. This sends Kay out to find his father, and he finds Deckard, the main character of the first Blade Runner. The two are later taken in by the resistance of replicants, one that is almost very similar to that of the resistance in Star Wars. They plan to fight the government for their rights so they can be embraced as your everyday person instead of being executed. However, it is here where he finds out that the born replicant was a girl, not a boy. When he tries to reaffirm that maybe the people in the resistance were wrong, they double down.
You imagined it was you. We all wish it was us.
It is through this that he realizes the replicant-born child was the dream maker Anna. Finally, as he thought he was beginning to understand who he was, he had that idea shattered right in front of him. Now he was forced to grapple with this idea that the role he thought he possessed in the world was completely fabricated. In reality, he was just a nobody the entire time. With his purpose destroyed, he goes to return back home, where at least he has Joy to look out for him. However, on his journey, he is confronted by his loneliness.
You look lonely. I can fix that. You look like a good Joe.
Whatever little left of individuality in him disappeared in that moment. Here, he realizes Joy was just following her programming by calling him Joe. She never loved him. In the span of hours, Kay lost all of what little he had to his identity. He catches word that Deckard has been caught, and because of everything he's lost, Kay decides that even if he's not the chosen one, that he will help bring her father to her. So, he does. He brings Deckard to Anna. Their meeting will undoubtedly change the world forever, but even so, Kay falls victim to an injury he received earlier in the film, dying outside in the snow. Kay will never live to see the world that he helped create. Kay was a character that thought he was no one, and was given a chance to think he was important. And frankly, at first, he was a nobody. Although he dies thinking that he is no one important, through his strong beliefs and his fight for what was right, Kay did become somebody. It is his sacrifice that will change the world of Blade Runner for the better. He will be remembered in that universe as a hero. Kay's arc is incredibly powerful, moving, and absolutely inspiring because it shows audiences that even though he wasn't anyone important or not a part of a special lineage like Deckard's, that he still had the power to change that world. Plus, going back to Gen Z and Gen Alpha, depression, loneliness, and lack of purpose are running rampant, and they are all things embodied through Kay in this film. Despite all of the societal weights holding him down, he is able to overcome them and push through, which is a fantastic message for anyone struggling that they can accomplish their goals. Even if life is rough, even if you're feeling lonely, or you're feeling very depressed, you can finish that paper, or you can ask that person out, or you can chase your dreams. Even if Kay dies in the end, his death tells us all to keep pushing forward.
We're all just looking out for something real.
Again, Blade Runner 2049 and The Last Jedi were released in the same year, and both had the idea of ultimately distancing their main characters from any special lineage. Both were powerful messages to present to their audience, showcasing that the power to do great things and bring about positive change can come from anywhere, even in the darkest of times or scenarios. Yet, in the end, for whatever reason, Disney was afraid for this to be the message of Rey's character. Rey's arc had the potential to be as powerful as Kay's was. She was made to be a nobody, and it should have stayed that way. Seeing somebody who came from nothing get inspired to fight for a resistance that was for the good of the people and ultimately help save the entire galaxy would have been amazing. It was the perfect message that anyone is capable of great things. Yet, they made her arc the inverse of Kay's. She is a part of a super powerful lineage, making her a nepo baby of the Force. She does end up saving the galaxy, but through incredibly convenient ways that don't feel impactful at all, and from a threat that should have already been dead in the first place. Rey's arc doesn't work and has been a hotspot of debate, argument, memes and jokes for years now, and it is going to continue to be an argument because Rey doesn't really have a purpose. Kay was a nobody the entire way through. He came from nothing, yet when he thinks he's special, that 1 in a million, he acts. When he finds out he wasn't special, he did what was right still, in turn making him become special. He became inspired to be a part of a resistance that was greater than him, and in the end, he changed the world at the cost of his own life. It is an incredibly impactful moment that people still talk about years after the film's release because Kay's arc works. Rey was a nobody, and it worked fantastically, but by forcing her to become a Palpatine, it completely soiled her character. Kay was a nobody, and he stayed a nobody. It showed us all that anyone, if they truly try, can change the world, and that is the power of being a nobody.